No. There we are. Well, I'll go very quickly for this because you probably already have gotten word of the punchline for what I'm going to talk about. As you know, Magnolia has had real challenges for the last 2 years, predominantly driven by our difficulty getting facilities. And the staff of Magnolia, as a leadership team, we've made a recommendation to our board that we close as of July 1st. And the board has now had 2 meetings and 2 committee meetings in addition to that to understand all of the details of what that means. And I want to just thank publicly your staff for working closely with us to make sure that we identify all of the steps that are going to be necessary to notify everyone who needs to be notified, to ensure that all of the grants that we have are closed up. We also have had an issue where we were actually overpaid by the state at the beginning of this year, so we're returning some funds to the state as well. And your team has been especially helpful for us in going through that process of analyzing it. Our board is going to be considering this at their June 28th meeting. And although there have been constant last-ditch attempts to find facilities that are going to work for us, the bottom line is just that we haven't found any. And being in a temporary location makes it extremely difficult to enroll students, because the families don't want to send their kids to a school that's going to be there for a year, but it could be 13 miles away the following year, which is what happened to us this year. This year, we worked super hard to find a facility, but we couldn't do it. The other thing I'd like to say is that your special education folks are phenomenal. We had a very low number of special ed kids this year, but in our previous years, as we've worked with the county special education folks, they have been some of the best educators I've met in my life. And I wanted to be able to say that publicly because they have really been instrumental in the success of our special education students. Prior to my coming today with this report, we didn't have our SBAC scores, but I have them now. So our SBAC scores for English language arts rose from 67% to 89%, and for math from 66% to 75%. Those reference the percentage of our students that are proficient or advanced. I'd also like to let you know that we did graduate this year, 11 students, our first and last graduating class. 10 out of 11 of them were accepted to four-year colleges and universities. One's going off to Africa on a trek. And the list of colleges that our students were accepted to include San Francisco State University, Cal Poly Pomona, CSU East Bay, Monterey CSU, Semmelweis, which is a medical school in Hungary, and one of our students decided to turn down UC Irvine in favor of that. San Jose State University, St. Edward's College in Austin, UC Davis, UC Santa Cruz, UCI, UC Santa Barbara, UC San Diego, University of the Pacific, and University of Washington, Seattle. So now, obviously, they're not going to all of the schools because we only have 10 kids that are going to four-year colleges, but those are the places where they were accepted, and we're very proud of them. We ran a significant budget deficit this year, ensuring that we would have all of the A through G courses required for all of our students to be able to progress, and that's a challenge, but it's not an impossible challenge. And we didn't want to do anything that would impair any of their academic achievement all the way through to closure. But that's where we're going. You have the slides, but I'd rather just close and say thank you very much, and that we're looking looking forward isn't the right word, but we are very much going to work closely with your staff to go through this closure process in as smooth and transparent way as possible, so that if and when we want to open a school for the kids who still want to come, we'll come back and you'll say, oh, they're good citizens. That's our hope.
Would you please state your name for the record?
I'm Caprice Young, and I'm the CEO and Superintendent of Magnolia Public Schools.
Thank you. Questions from board members? No. Comments? Anyone?
Just thank you for being here tonight to explain all of that and to be here to ask questions. And I was wondering whether the two schools where we know are closing to be here, and I appreciate you being here too.
Thank you.
To present to us.
It breaks our heart, and I know that all of you know that we have an extraordinarily engaged student body and parent body because you've met them, and I had the unfortunate experience of also having a change.org petition saying, Caprice, don't let our schools close, and nearly 200 signatures and statements from kids and their parents wanting to keep us open. But the fact is that you can't repeal the law of gravity, and if you don't have a facility, you don't have a school.
I really do appreciate your emphasis on making sure that the students who are there currently aren't academically impacted. It's nice to hear you say that, and I also am really impressed by the thoroughness you seem to be putting into making sure that the closure is all tied up neatly and that there's as little impact to the parents and families, and that everyone is closures are never easy, right? There's really tough things to deal with, and at some point students are always impacted, right? The students who currently go there and want to continue, but they'll go on to other schools, and I am impressed by the statement around wanting to leave the mark as being good neighbors, good citizens, and good educators. So thank you for that.
Pleasure. Thank you.
So Caprice, you said your board is going to consider June 28th?
Yeah, so our board meeting is currently scheduled for June 28th. It's moved around a little bit between June 27th and June 29th, just in terms of getting a quorum during a difficult time of year. But as a leadership team, we've made the recommendation to the board for closure. We considered having the board vote on closure in May, and we took a motion to the board allowing them to consider closure then, and laid out the facts around our facilities and enrollment and so on. And at that time, they wanted instead to keep looking for a facility. And we got an amazing call a week later from San Jose Unified School District that they had space for us. However, that is not something that's going to come to closure in time for us to be able to move forward.
So then that means there is not a chance that the board will not vote to close, that it will vote to close.
I can't see, we joke about how we're always saying, well, when the miracle happens and a facility falls in our lap. But the truth is, there's not going to be a miracle that's going to happen in the next 10 days. And given that outcome, our board will really have no choice but to close.
So in that case, I guess my next question is for the staff. What is the timeline for us? What do we need to do? Do we need to take a vote to close I don't know what the term is. If it closes on its own, what do we do with the charter that's granted?
So there's no official vote that this body needs to take. We will need to notice the CDE, and there's a checklist that we're providing, and we've been working with Magnolia for closure. So there still is probably a month or two of work collaborating to make sure that the closure is completed. But we would bring the information to the board, but there's no official vote that this body would need to take.
Isn't it the case that closure is outlined in the petition itself?
Yes.
Yes. So in the event that a school closes, it's already determined up front. what the closure procedure is. So,
And the state has also a requirement that 6 months after we close, when we've closed all our